G'day Jaffa Adventures, welcome to the channel and welcome to another short do-it-yourself maintenance video. Today we're going to take on the air cleaner, and if you know your Toyota 200s, you know this is an area that you do not want to get wrong. Alright, let's get stuck in. Step 1, pop your bonnet of course. Step 2, undo the 10mm band clamp that holds your air intake from the top of the filter box. I just use a quarter drive socket, that way you don't over tighten it when you go to tighten it back up. Next, we need to remove the MAF sensor, and it's held in place with a simple detent clip on the firewall side of the car. And there's that detent clip you can see there. Next, we've got 4 clips holding the air box in. You simply flick them down and lever them over. They can be a little bit tricky to get to, especially the one up in the front left-hand corner. You kind of got to use feel to get to that one, but easy enough. Then you simply twist it off and flip your air box over out of the road. Now the first thing you're going to notice, of course, is that this is not a factory genuine air filter. This is a Unifilter. Now if you know anything about 200s, you know that they've got a dusting issue. They will dust motors in extreme conditions, and it will destroy that motor. And that'll cost you upwards of 25 grand to address that. So you really don't want to go down that path when you can avoid it with some simple changes in your air filter. Now, I'm not going to discuss the pros and the cons about different aftermarket solutions, but let's just run through what's available out there. Number 1, you've obviously got your factory air filter unit. The reason that that's a problem is twofold. First of all, on the factory air filter, that gasket there, which is pinched on the edge of this box, is very thin, and that actually allows dust past that. So that's issue number 1. Now let's just freeze frame for a second. There are aftermarket spacers that I've seen that have been released recently that try and bulk that space up to prevent air from getting through that gap. I've also heard of people buying some foam from Bunnings and simply putting it around the perimeter of the air box, again to infill that gap. So there's 2 potential workarounds for that issue. The second issue with the factory unit is it actually allows very fine particulate dust through the paper material. Now Toyota claim that it's small enough and that it's not an issue. I call bullshit on that. Any dust, any visible dust through the air filter, for me, is not on. So how do you address the issue? 1, you can use a foam air element like I've got with the Unifilter. 2, you can use an aftermarket air box, which uses the factory Toyota element. Or 3, you can get aftermarket air boxes which use a different element. For example, the Duramax diesel. Now I'm not comparing and contrasting those different ones, but my advice to you is simple. 1, get rid of that bloody factory element out of there. That's a no-go. So for those units that use a factory element in an aftermarket box, it might seal around the edges, but you'll still get dirt past the filter element itself. So for me, that one's out of the equation. It's either a Unifilter or it's an aftermarket box that uses a different element that's much more efficient than what the Toyota unit is. Now I've obviously gone down the Unifilter route, and you can see that that works an absolute treat. Now I'm not sure whether the camera is going to pick this up or not, but this is the clean side of the air box. And you can see if you run your hand on that clean side of the air box, there is absolutely no dust anywhere. I've not cleaned this. This has come straight out of the car. And you can see no dust on the inside of that air box anywhere. Has the filter been doing its job? Well, that's the clean side of the filter. That's the dirty side of the filter. So just the results that I've seen over the years when I've had these in my car, I'm a huge advocate for this type of a filter system. Nice chunky seal, so no dust can get past the sides, and 2 elements, this top element which is dirty, and the clean side element to prevent any dust getting through into your motor. That's the good thing about these. The bad thing about these, of course, is that they're oiled. So one, they're dirty as heck. You get oil and pus all over you when you've got to deal with them. But secondly, if you over oil them, they'll actually pull the oil out of the filter and it'll muck up your MAF sensor. The MAF sensor is here, located on the clean side of the airbox, and if you get oil or crud on that, it'll actually muck up the signal and then your engine will start running poorly. So you've got to make sure that you don't over oil these things either. So I mentioned there's two elements in this. We've got the dirty side element here, and that simply pulls out of the frame like so, and there's your element ready to be cleaned. The second element sits underneath of it. You reach in here and you pull that element out like that, and that's the clean side element. So obviously when you do your service, you've got to either replace these with clean elements or clean these elements and put the same ones back in. I'm going to clean these elements. Now the Unifilter boys have a degreasing agent that they sell you, and you can put these filter elements in there and clean them with that, and it works well. I actually use petrol. The good thing that I find about petrol is it cleans them fantastically, and then of course they dry very easily. The bad thing about petrol is over time they'll actually start to damage the filter elements, and your filter elements will sort of start to fall apart. I've had them in the car now for probably 2 years, 3 years. They've been washed dozens of times. They're still holding up well. There's no issue on the structural integrity, but just be aware that petrol is pretty harsh and can damage these things. So we'll throw a bit of petrol in our container. Now the first one I wash is the clean side filter, because I don't want to get the gunge off the dirty side filter into my clean one. And that's it. That's the easy one done. I'll set that out in the sun. I'll let the petrol flash off, and then we re-oil it. Now we'll do our dirty side filter, and I'm going to wash this one twice. At least twice, maybe even 3 times if it's really, really grungy. And you can already see the color of the petrol is getting grungy and grimy. Put in some fresh juice. And we would rinse and repeat. Alright, that's done. Now you'll see on that there's still some particulate matter. That's fine. We'll just let that dry. And when we dry, we can simply just brush that stuff off. Now while that filter is drying, we'll remove the MAF sensor from the lid of the airbox, and that's held in with 2 Phillips head screws. And then the MAF sensor simply slides out. So to clean the MAF sensor, I've just got some super cheap auto MAF sensor cleaner. And you simply give it a spray like that. Now you can let that drip dry. I will hit it with compressed air, however, but at a very, very low pressure. That's probably 10 psi max. And there we have it. MAF sensor all cleaned, all dried, ready to be reinstalled. The nice thing about these MAF sensors as well is they're idiot proof. You can't put them in backwards. So if I wanted to put that in that way, you can see the bolt holes don't line up. So completely idiot proof. Slide them in, do your bolts up. There we have it, MAF sensor reinstalled. So I'll just take a rag, go around and wipe that sealing edge down. So that filter's dry now. We can just simply wipe off that particulate matter. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Now it's oil time. Here's the other thing I like about these Unifilter designs. There's our box. The Unifilter simply sits in the box like that. That's your sealing edge that the clamps clamp down on. Now if for whatever reason that didn't seal properly and you actually had a very small gap there, the air has got to pass through that foam before it actually gets to the clean side of the filter. I like that design. That's quite clever. They could have just left that as a rubber seal there and didn't even have to put that foam there, But because they've done that, if you don't get a proper seal there, your air's still got to get past or through this foam to get into the clean side of the engine. Clever. So it's much better if you get a helper to help you with this stuff, because it's gooey and you got to massage it in. We've got the wind blowing this way too, so you don't stand this way and shoot it, because you're going to coat yourself in oil. Now I'll just massage that in. Now you can get this oil in a spray pack, or you can get it in a container that you tip out. I prefer the spray pack because you tend not to over oil it with the spray pack. Whereas the stuff that you tip out, you can tend to over oil a bit. And just squish it as hard as you can to spread it around. There we have it. One clean filter, oiled. And we'll get the second one. And that's it. That filter's oiled. Now some people may tend to go overboard with that. Don't, because that oil will come off, it'll clog up your MAF sensor, and it'll start throwing codes in the motor. Then I just take this frame, and on that sealing edge, we just do a little squirt and rub it in. So off you go, Jill. That's it, that's heaps. Thank you, Jill. Thanks, hon. That's it. We're done.
Okay.
All right. Now we reassemble our frame. Got our oiled filter, and we've got our frame. The first one's easy because there's plenty of room. You just tuck that filter in under the edge, all the way around the perimeter. That's it. That's seated in there beautifully. That's your clean side. Now we get our dirty element and we do the exact same thing. One side of it's ridged, one side of it's flat. You place the ridged side facing the air intake side. And again, the exact same thing as the other one. You stuff it in around the perimeter. Now this one's a little bit more difficult because of the interference fit. And there we have it. Unifilter's finished, ready to be reinstalled back into the car. Okay, time to install our Unifilter into the car. Dirty side, face down. Clean side, face up. Don't put this sucker in backwards or upside down, because if you do, you can lunch a motor. If that was sitting in there like that, which you could do easily enough, because this is the suction side, it can actually suck that filter element out into your intake and stuff up a turbo. So make sure you get it around that way. That's why there's that screen or that mesh there. The air's sucking up through here, and there's no way that it's going to pull that filter element through there. Get rid of any random butterfly wings you might have on the dirty side. Now Toyota, in all their wisdom, created a rectangular box, not a square box. So it only goes in one way. You can't put it in that way, it doesn't fit. So I don't know whether that was a bit of design, purposeful design, or what. But anyway, next we take our box lid, make sure our intake pipe is nice and seated, and then set the lid down on top of the box. Now mine's pretty tight because I've got cables and all sorts of goodies running everywhere. But you want to make sure you get that down properly. What you can do before you put any clamps down is you seat it and you just give it a little bit of a twist, and you actually can feel that it's seated. Then you do up your four clips. 1, 2, this one by feel, 3, 4. Seated. That's now done. Now we take our MAF sensor, which we unplugged, plug him back in, lock our cable down. The last thing we need to do is tighten up this band clamp. One day at band clamp. That's it, she's done. Intake hose sealed, MAF sensor on, 4 clips locked in, housing sealed properly. Good to go. Well, that's it, folks. In the space of what, 10 minutes max, we've cleaned that air filter. Look at the tools we've used. A Phillips screwdriver, a 10mm socket, some MAF sensor cleaner, and some filter oil. You can absolutely do this at home, no problem whatsoever. Back yourself on this. And I implore you, especially if you use your car in dusty or dirty conditions, do something about that factory air cleaner. It is not fit for purpose. It will damage your motor. Toyota will scream black, white, and blue that, hey, it's okay. It's not. Either get yourself a new air box in there with a different filter element, get yourself a Unifilter like I've got, but please do something for the sake of the longevity of your car. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you're enjoying these short, simple maintenance how-tos. Anybody can do this stuff at home. Simply back yourself. You've got the skills. Take your time, think it through, you'll be fine. Until next time, keep the shiny side up. Have a great weekend. Cheers.